In this video, I'm going to show you how to build an AI voice travel agent. This is going to be your personal assistant that you can call to discuss travel plans and get recommendations. And after this call, we're going to send that entire transcript to an N8N AI agent, which is going to process your request and plans and email that to you as a detailed travel itinerary that is going to include the latest flight and hotel data for you to look through. This email will also provide the caller with everything they need to book their trip. Here's a quick demo.
I'm here to help you with your travel plans today. What kind of trip are you thinking about?
Awesome. Yeah, I'm definitely looking to travel to New York.
New York's such a fun choice. Where will you be flying out from?
Just from Los Angeles.
All right, so heading from Los Angeles to New York. When are you hoping to go and how long do you want to stay?
Probably next week for about 2 weeks.
Got it, so leaving from Los Angeles to New York next week for around 2 weeks.
And once you've had the conversation with the agent right there, that information is going to get sent to an N8N AI agent, which is going to go ahead and process a detailed travel itinerary, which is going to get sent to you via an email. And this right here is an example of that email. So this right here is a super nicely formatted email, which is going to go ahead and provide us with flight information, live flight information, as well as hotel data as well. So live real hotel data is going to get sent to you in your email that is super relevant to the conversation that you just had. And not only is it going to provide you with this data, but it's also going to make it super tailored and personalized to the conversation that you just had. So if you mentioned visiting anything in particular, it's going to map that out. So if I just scroll down here, we're going to get all the flight information. We're going to get all of the hotel information to look through based on location, based on pricing. So you can give it a budget, you can give it a particular area that you want to be located in. It's going to do all of that work for you. So it is going to look through the best options and provide that information. And once again, this email is not a template. It is completely constructed by the AI. We're going to prompt it to create this email for us, and it is going to do all the work as to what it's going to be sending us. So in order to go ahead and start to build this system, we're going to be using Retell AI as our voice agent platform. So this is going to be the main platform that we use to construct the voice side of the system. And then once we've constructed our voice agent, it is going to go ahead and send a request all the way over to our N8N AI agent, which is going to process the transcript and any other information to create our detailed travel itinerary. This N8N agent is obviously then going to be able to send an email to the user that just called in. So to get started in building out our voice agent, we're going to be diving into Retell AI. So if you aren't familiar with Retell, it is sort of a main platform, a central platform to build our voice agent. The main work that we're going to be doing is prompt engineering. So we have to build a set of instructions for our agent to learn from. We're going to teach it what are the questions that we want to be asking, what are the responses that we are going to be expecting, what's some of the knowledge we want to give it access to, personality, its role, all of that, its entire construction as an AI is going to be done by us using Retell. So in order to get started in building this particular agent here on Retell, I'm actually going to swap to a website called Markdown Live Preview. So this is something that we like to use within our agency for constructing our prompts. Like I said, prompts are the main thing that we're going to be using to construct our voice agent, and we want to do that reliably. And so this right here is a Markdown Live Preview, and all that means is that we're going to take our prompt rather than building it in Retell. We're going to build that here, and this is going to give us a really good indication as to how our prompt actually looks to our AI model. So I've just gone ahead and pasted a role into the first part of our prompt. So if you aren't familiar with how I structure these prompts, the role is a really key part to really just structure the foundations for our agent. The main goal here is just to give it a bit of a personality, give it a overall objective. Maybe it's not too specific of an objective. It's really just shaping its personality. We've said here that you are Sophie, a cheerful and helpful travel concierge assistant working for a travel planning service. So we've really just defined who it is. So it's a cheerful and helpful travel concierge assistant. So that's great context. That's super helpful for our assistant to obviously know that. Pretty critical stuff. And then working for a travel planning service. So perfect. We've really nailed the direct role for this agent. And then you handle inbound calls from users who want help planning a trip. Your job is to collect their travel preferences so the planning team can create a personalized itinerary. So really great, straight to the point. This is who you are. This is the main sort of purpose of your existence. That's kind of the point of the role. Obviously, these agents are really starting from scratch in what their purpose is, and we need to give that to them. And two really small things to note about this bit of prompt that is pasted in here. One is going to be the markdown formatting at the top here. So we have added in a hashtag and then a space and then added in our heading name. And so the purpose of this is to create a large heading. So you can see on our markdown preview, the benefit of this right here is that we can see that this is in much larger font, much larger text here. And this is really to separate our prompt, structure our prompt so that it just makes a lot of sense. And so while it makes sense to us and me while I'm viewing it on this actual markdown format here, this also makes complete sense to the AI itself. And then just below this, we've also got the Sophie. So Sophie is obviously her name. And we've just added these two asterisks on both sides sides of the text, and that has just bolded the name. Small thing, might not be an absolute necessary thing to do, but this can help to really reiterate that her name is Sophie. Make sure that that isn't obviously forgotten. That is a critical part of her existence, and this is something to play around with, obviously. The next part of my prompt is going to be a bit of context. So I'm going to add a little bit of context as to the call that's coming through. This is obviously a calling system. It is not a chat-based chatbot, so we want to give it the context. And in this case, this is an inbound call. So we've added in the asterisk once again. Want to really make sure of that is known. The user has just called in and hasn't provided any information yet. Your goal is to ask a few simple questions and gather the required fields. So the context part of our prompt is really good for adding in stuff just like this. Your goal is to ask a few simple questions and gather the required fields. It's just giving it context for the call once again. It's sort of just backing up the role that we've just added in here, obviously handling inbound calls. This is an inbound call, just backing up the main important parts of it. This can be more important for business information. So obviously in the context of this travel planning service, we haven't given it a name or any specific details. But obviously as you build this out for your business or for other businesses, you are obviously going to want to go ahead and add in the main business context into here. Obviously in this case, it's a mock example, so we don't have that info right here, but that's what you would typically put in there. Below the context, we have the task. The task is the main sort of juice, the main part of the actual prompt and getting it to do what we want. And the task is, you guessed it, it's just the task. What are we going to be doing in this call? What do we want to follow through step by step with the caller? So our task, once again, adding in our heading, we've gone ahead and added in a step-by-step process. So in this case, we've got about 7 main steps that we want to go through. So task number 1, greet the user naturally and warmly. Let them know you're here to help with their travel plans. Number 2, guide the conversation step by step to collect. So we've just added in obviously the main part. So number 2, this is what we want to do, but we've added in some bullet points. So obviously at this part of the conversation, we want to start to collect information. Just nice, easy to format if we just add that in dot points. So we've obviously just added in this bit of formatting. You can see that it looks a little bit different, obviously in the markdown here. And once again, it's all just about organization. The way that we structure our prompt and wording needs to be very intentional to ensure that our agent has complete context as to which bit of information relates to which. Make it as clear and simple to process as possible, even for a human to understand. And that way there really isn't as much thinking needed from the AI, which will result in less errors as you go. So guide the conversation step by step to collect. So we've got the origin, ask where they will depart from. Destination, ask where they're hoping to travel. Dates, ask when they plan to go and return. Clearly determine departure and return dates. So we've added an example here as well. This is actually a really critical part of the prompt. So we want to clearly determine the dates. So e.g. 1 week from next Monday. So that could be from July 10th to July 19th this year. Adding in examples is a very, very good thing to do. At any point in your prompt that you realize that a part of the prompt might be a little bit ambiguous as to what you're looking to capture, how you're looking to process data, in this case, the dates, adding in an example is going to increase the performance of the prompt by a lot. Once we've captured the date, we're going to ask for their budget, ask what kind of budget they have in mind for the whole trip. Always ask for the currency for clarity as well. Ask if they have any preferences like flights, hotels, or specific activities, and then just ask for their contact email. So ask for their personal email to send the itinerary to once it's done by our team. So really making sure these questions are all included, added into this part here, step by step to collect. And that's just a really good way to format it. Number 3, repeat their answers casually as you go without sounding like a robot. Confirm you got it right, but don't announce you're confirming. So a little bit of prompt conditioning. This is something that you're going to have to play around with and call with to understand why this needs to be here, and other stuff that might need to be added as well, as prompts tend to change quite a lot. Obviously, we understand that this type of conversation could be quite back and forth. We understand that it could be quite nuanced in the types of answers that we get. So we don't want it to be too rigid, too straightforward of an answer to come through. We understand that questions could come through and we want to handle that appropriately. Then number 4, we've got, once you have all the info, say you'll pass it along to the planning team and thank them. Once you've collected the required fields, you'll send the data using the send to N8N function. If there's a validation error, i.e. the destination is missing, we're going to ask the user for that missing information, then retry it again. And once successful, thank them again and end the call with the end call function. So quite straightforward, quite streamlined as to what we're hoping it to do. You just write out in plain English what you're looking for in that conversation. In this case, these are some of the key areas that we need in order to build out that travel itinerary, and obviously email it to them. And then just sort of some prompt conditioning at the bottom here to make sure that that conversation goes as smoothly as it should. Once the task is done, right after this, we're going to go ahead and add in an example conversation. So a really powerful thing to do is add in examples, like I mentioned earlier. So examples are really going to help the AI get an exact understanding as to what is this conversation going to look like? What are some of the answers that you're expecting me to output? And just giving a really good rough example is going to help out quite a lot. So just going ahead and adding in your main heading, a subheading, and then just the entire example. So this is super basic, to be honest. Obviously with this conversation, it isn't going to be the most complex conversation ever to have, but in this case, we've just gone ahead and sort of mapped out all the questions that we want to ask, potential answers and responses that we want from our agent to process that. And then specifically when we want to be running our function calls as well. So the send to N8N as well as the end call function when we want to be running these during the conversation. And it might not seem like much, but this and adding in examples like this of all the different pathways that could occur is pretty amazing as to how well it can help improve the conversation. Another part of the prompt that I'm going to add in here is the missing field correction. This is a little bit of prompt engineering, something to add in just to make the conversation go a little bit smoother. So all this is going to do is just another example. So this is a subheading, missing field correction is a subheading of the example conversation. So we're just adding in a little bit of additional examples here. And the goal here is just to make sure the agent knows exactly what to do when something doesn't go right. So when you send a function on Retell, it's possible that not all of the values that you were looking to send off to N8N were actually captured. So maybe somebody didn't provide you with the dates, they didn't provide you with all the information you were looking for. It's possible that it's going to trip up the automation. And so if that happens, what do we do in that case? How do we resolve it? And you can see here, this is an example of that occurring. Then after this, we've got some more sort of generalized notes. So here we have rules to follow, conversational guidelines. So these are sort of generalized notes. I'll get to more general notes in a minute as well, but this is more conversational notes. So this is sort of in some way a template that you could use across multiple different builds to really make sure that a lot of the little things about voice agents are covered in your prompts. The way these AI models work is they obviously don't have context that they're going to be interacting through a voice agent. And so there does need to be a bit of conditioning to ensure that whatever it does, it's going to actually sound right over the phone. And so in this case, we want it to speak in short, casual sentences, use diverse language and rephrasing to be more clear. We're going to be adding in some prompt conditioning for time, adding in some prompt conditioning for numbers. So we don't want to read out numbers like this. It can confuse the voice agent quite a bit and speak quite weirdly. And so just adding in some prompt conditioning here to read it out as a word is a really big thing. That's something that you should really be adding to all of your voice agent prompts, as well as address reading, obviously making sure that it's not reading it out as numbers or incorrectly. The street here example, reading it out as street, stuff like that. Small things, but can make a big difference for the realism of the system. And then just other stuff here as well with AM, PM, all this stuff, and adding filters, speech filters is a big thing for voice agents as well. And then lastly, for our sort of notes, we've just got more general notes. So I've just got down here general, and these are, I'd say, more relating to the actual agent itself. So general, you operate in a call and the user text might contain a transcription error. And then we have some more general notes, which are just sort of small things to add in. It's absolutely not necessary for the agent to obviously work, but this is something that you add to as you test the agent. So as you call it and talk with it and give it a bunch of edge cases and different scenarios, you're going to realize that some things, it needs a bit of conditioning. Obviously, the agent can't handle every request that comes through, and this is just sort of handling that. So for example, this right here says, follow these rules closely. Your ability to do so is integral to the business's bottom line. Only end the call after the user acknowledges your closing remarks. We don't want to end the call randomly. We want to make sure that the user is acknowledging that the call is going to be ended, or they want the call to be ended. And then just a bunch of other random prompt conditioning to make sure that it does what we want it to. And then finally, the last part of our prompt that is a bit extensive as to the conditioning that we're adding in here, although this is absolutely necessary to ensure that the system is reliable, that it works, that it's consistent in how it outputs. And what we're going to be adding here is more strict guardrails. So the notes and rules to follow are sort of like guardrails, although not super strict as to what the agent can or cannot do. It's more sort of a guideline as to rules to follow, something that we should be doing to make the conversation obviously smooth to speak with. Although in terms of guardrails, these are things that we want it to absolutely not do under any circumstances. And so in this case right here, we've got some behavior guidelines we've mapped out right here. We want to stay authentic, don't role play, maintain a professional tone, stay task oriented. So this part of the prompts can be quite templatized in a way. This is something that we do add to a lot of our production agents. And this really helps to mostly target getting the agent to sort of act a certain role that you didn't want it to. So in some cases, if you haven't added the right guardrails to your agent and you told your voice agent to speak like a pirate, in some cases, it would just start to do that. And so obviously for a production ready system, not exactly the most professional system to have if it doesn't have these kind of guardrails. And so we recommend adding this into any type of a voice agent build, even chat agent as well, just adding in this conditioning to make it really quite a bit more professional. So in this case, the user wants it to talk like a pirate. Obviously, we're not going to do that. We've got a bit of an example prompt as to what to say in this situation. And then we've also got some others as well. So Mickey Mouse, say it in a funny robot voice. You'd be surprised if you didn't add this part of the prompt and you did prompt it to do this stuff, it would start doing it. And so obviously that's not ideal for production ready systems. You don't want it to be having the capability to do that. You want it to really be quite as strict as possible while still having the flexibility to be conversational and a good experience to talk with. And at the bottom here, here, we have some enforcement logic, really just reiterating a lot of the stuff that we just did here. So detect and internally classify requests that invoke character roleplay. So exactly what's happening here. That's something that we can really eliminate with this part of the prompt. And then just other stuff down here, making sure that it really just stays on task, really just does what it needs to. Obviously, we don't want the agent to be forced to say anything that it shouldn't be saying. Now, Retell has some backend prompting as well, which actually helps to avoid a lot of that. But this is something quite easy to add to any agent, which helps just add that extra bit of conditioning. So the next part of our agent is obviously going to be the functions. This is the main part of it. This is what's going to actually allow us to now start to talk to N8N. So we have at the top here is an end call function. This is something that's just native to Retell. If you hit the add button, click end call, you can just add in the ability to end the call from the user or the agent. Just by adding that in there, super easy. You just click that, 2 buttons, and that's done. And then below this, we have a custom function that plugs directly to our N8N agent. So jumping into N8N, this right here is our additional AI agent that we're going to be using to build out that entire travel itinerary. And so rather than building out sort of a workflow automation to create this itinerary, we're using a sort of secondary agent. So we've got our main voice agent talking to our secondary N8N agent. And we can see our own agent here has a dedicated prompt for looking at the transcript that has come through from our Retell agent. And it is going to pass all that information. It is going to look for everything that it needs in order to create this itinerary. It is going to communicate with a series of flight APIs and hotel APIs, talking back and forth with itself to understand what's the best travel itinerary for this particular individual. It's going to go ahead and use the Gmail module to go ahead and send that in an email. So obviously we've got our webhook at the start here. This is necessary to connect into Retell, of course. Adding in that module, we can then send from Retell to this webhook right here as our custom function. Once that's occurred, we're going to jump into an AI agent step. So this right here is what is going to process that big transcript coming from Retell and essentially process what we need to do with all of the tools that it has access to. So before I dive into that agent, I'm just going to run through some of the tools that we've given it access to. So in this case, we've got a hotels API. So this is going to be getting live information about some real hotels. We've got a outbound flights API. So this is going to get some real live outbound flight information as to what could be booked at the actual time that you're looking to book for, and then return flights as well. So these will work with each other to obviously get a good set of information. So these are obviously going to work with each other to find the best set of flights. And then just to quickly run through the rest of the structure of our agent. If you haven't built with N8N before, we are just using the general AI agent module. This allows us to add in these tools. It will communicate with these tools if it thinks it needs to, using information to essentially complete the objective that we've built out in our main prompt here. We've got access to this particular chat model. We're using an open router chat model. All that means is that we get access to a bunch of different AI models all in one request. So if we want to get access to other models, not just OpenAI, we can get access to all different types of models, from Perplexity to a lot of the Google models, XAI, Grok models, all that stuff we can get access to. So that's just why we're using the open router chat model here. And then we've just got the default N8N memory block right here. And this just allows the agent to have a little bit of memory as to what's happening in its process. So as the agent communicates with these tools and back and forth to come up with the best travel itinerary, we need to have some memory as to what it's doing. So jumping into our first API here, get live hotels. If I jump into this API, this is what we're going to be using to get the hotel data. So this is kind of a very simple scraping of a web page. So the way that this is going to work is that we're going to be using the SERP API, which if you're not familiar with that, it's a very standard API and connection to use to scrape web pages. And in this case, what we can use is essentially just scrape Google with it. So to build out this request, I've gone ahead and added a description at the top here, get live hotels from Google. That's just going to help our AI understand what this particular module is used for. It's a get method. We're using the URL of the serpapi.com search. We're sending a query parameter. So we want to obviously send through the check-in date. We've added in, this is going to be defined by the AI automatically. This is not a variable that we're going to be using, fully defined by the AI. This should be in the format of the year, month, and date, and then provided an example for it. This is just a prompt that we're using to understand what value should be formatted here. So we're doing that for the check-in and the checkout date. That is going to be helpful for our Google Hotels system to understand when we're looking to book for. So that's exactly formatted how it should be. Below this, we've added in the number of people that are going to be on this trip. In this case, we've set it to a very specific value of 1. So the number of adults. If you are familiar with Google Hotels, once again, you can select dates and the amount of people on that trip. In this case, we've added in adults 1. If you want it to be a bit more dynamic, you could just set it to actually get set by the AI, add in a question in the Retell side of things to ask how many people are going to be on the trip, 1, 2, 4, and pretty much that value will just get inserted automatically. Below this, we have the hotel class. So parameter defines to include only certain hotel class in the results. So based on information from the conversation, it's just going to define that the class of the hotel there. And then we've got the actual query that we're sending off to Google Hotels. So right here, we've added in query, description, parameter defines the search search query. You can use anything that you would use in a regular Google Hotels search. So obviously there is going to be a bit of information as to where you're looking to travel and the sort of area that you're looking to travel, and all that stuff is going to get pretty much thrown into the query there. So as you would if you wanted to Google Hotels and you searched up San Francisco, it would provide you with all of those areas, and this is pretty much just going to handle that entire side of it. Next, we've got our API key. So this is just our SERP API key. So if you just go to serpapi.com, if you go ahead and register for an account, you can get a number of requests for free just for testing it out. And this is just going to give you access to obviously doing the scraping and searching on your own account. And after this API key, we've got our engine, which is going to be the Google Hotels in this case. So just leave it there. That just makes sure it is specifically targeting Google Hotels. So that request is done. We're now able to access Google Hotel data from our agent, and our agent is prompted to access that. Next, we're going to be getting the outbound flight details. So jumping into this prompt, get live flights from Duffel. So Duffel is an API that we can use to get real travel information from quite easily for outgoing and incoming flights. So we can see here, right here, Duffel, sell travel without the complexity, whatever, pretty much. We can just use the API to get access to flight information. There's probably a bunch of other information that you can get from this as well. If you wanted to add to it, make it more complicated, you can do that as well with trips and other stuff and information they provide access to. So obviously that's just going to provide us with the main flight information, so we can send it a bunch of details and get back some really specific real flight data. So for this request, we've just gone ahead and set it up as a post request, and then we've just added in these particular headers here. This has just come from their documentation. You can obviously read through that yourself. Otherwise, this is just going to be on this template for you to copy. Obviously, a lot of this stuff is just standard information that they want us to provide. And then below this, we have our main set of body information. So if we just expand on this body right here, this is what we're sending off to the Duffel API to send us back some very specific information. And this right here is really containing everything we need in order to get the specific information for our flights. And once again, don't worry about the entire structure and how this all looks with the JSON code right here. It's going to be available for you to copy within the template. And this has also just come directly from the Duffel API. We didn't obviously create this template. This is coming directly from the Duffel API documentation. So we've added in a limit at the top here. This is just the number of responses that we're going to get back. So we only want 3 for the outgoing flights and then 3 again for the incoming flights, as we saw on the example email as well. And then what we have are a series of values that we want to send out in the API request. So we can see here, we've got the origin, the destination, the departure date, as well as the cabin class. So this is all information that the user just gave us, where they're leaving from, where they're going to, and the type of travel they're going to be on. And the way that this information is going to get populated is just using AI. So we can see here in this particular format of the request, we've essentially added in a from AI variable that just allows us to essentially prompt the information that we're looking for. So this is going to be using that memory from before, that is essentially the entire context of the conversation and data from previously in the agent. It's just going to populate all of these fields. So you really don't have to worry about anything in terms of changing this. This is all set up to do exactly what it should just by using AI. But you can obviously come through here and just read some of the prompts that are being used in order to get this information back. For example, the cabin class at the bottom here, the cabin that the passengers want to travel in, and these are just some of the possible values. So obviously the way that Duffel handles these travel details is by using these key variables. So either first class, business, premium economy, or economy. These are the standard wordings that are used by Duffel. So that's what you want to obviously add in the prompts here. And then whatever the user mentions as how they're looking to fly, it is going to be using that in its particular request. And obviously you do need to add in your API key as well. And you'll see in our header authentication right here, this is where our API key has been added. We've just added in the main field for authorization and then just added in our actual API key in this case. And it's obviously going to go ahead and use that to get access to our Duffel API. So once that's done, we're going to do the return flights as well. Very, very similar process to the outgoing flights, connecting to the exact same API endpoint, using the exact same set of parameters, but we're just going to be using a slightly different structure for this JSON here. Obviously, we're just going to be needing a departure date. So this is going to be when we're obviously going to be leaving, and this is going to be used for our particular flight lookup. And that's obviously going to be different than the previous one, which was for the date that we're leaving. So that is it for the APIs and the capabilities that the actual agent has access to in its sort of tool set in terms of getting hotel data for outbound flights and the return flights. Although the main part of the system is going to be our system prompt. So in our particular agent here, we have a couple of prompts that we're using to essentially give this agent the best chance at generating the best travel itinerary based on all the data that it's been given. So at the top here, we've got our prompt. This is the user message. So this is our sort of main message that we're sending our agent. It's the sort of front message. There are multiple different types of prompts that we can give an agent. But obviously, when you're talking to ChatGPT, you're sending it a question. That's called a user message. And then the backend ChatGPT actually has what's called a system prompt. And that's what we're configuring here. So our main user message is going to be, please plan the itinerary with this information. We can see here, we've got a bunch of different bits of information, and this is all coming from Retell. So I'll jump back into Retell to show you where this is coming from. That's all coming from Retell, populating all within here. And then we've got our system message, and our system message is essentially being used to understand, once we've got this information, what are we going to do with it? And so this is pretty much an entire prompt, an entire agent built up once again. And so the structure of this prompt is going to be very similar to the prompt that we built out for our voice agent. So I'm going to go ahead and actually copy this entire prompt and just showcase once again what this looks like in Markdown formatting. As once again, as you want to build these systems, it'll be super concise, super well formatted. You want to constantly use the right materials in terms of Markdown formatting. So I will just go ahead and delete this old prompt right here. I'm just going to paste this in for our new prompt. And this is going to be specifically used in our travel itinerary agent. So all the way at the top of our prompt here, we do actually just have this bit, which is just used for date formatting. Not a big deal. That just helps make sure the agent has a consistent understanding as to what the current date is. Before the main part of the prompt, structured very similar to what I showcased for our main AI voice agent prompts. We've got our role, we've got some available tools, our task once again, we've got error handling for sort of examples, some end conditioning as notes at the bottom here. And this just runs through everything that we want to have happen for generating the HTML email for our user. So I won't bore you with every single little detail about this prompt, but overall, you are an AI travel planner agent operating inside an N8N workflow. Your responsibility is to process incoming structured data about a user's travel preferences, analyze their budget, and generate an initial travel plan. This plan will be reviewed by a human travel advisor later. So what we've done is just provided a set of examples as to all the information that it's going to be receiving and the types of information that we expect to come from those variables. Just a lot of conditioning to ensure that the agent has complete context as to what its purpose is, what its goal is, what it should do under different circumstances, and just making sure that our output is clearly defined as well. But a really key and critical part of this agent is obviously giving it the context about all of the tools that it has access to. So obviously in this case, it's going to be able to get hotel data, outbound and return flight data. And we want to make sure that it has complete access to that information, and we've prompted it properly to use it. So our available tools: get outbound flights, get return flights, get live hotels. You must use the following tools based on the user's preferences to retrieve the information. Never generate or hallucinate the information about flights and stays. Use tools to retrieve the desired data. So this right here is all the tools it has access to. It's right at the top here of the prompt. That's a perfect spot to have it. Make sure that it knows it can use these tools. The next part is the task. So once again, I'm just going to skip through parts of it here, but this is our main part of the actual agent that's going to be generating the report. So the task, validate the input. Obviously, this is part of the Retell prompt that we just built previously. Ultimately, if information is missing, we don't have the dates, whatever reason, we can't run the actual request that the agent should have access to. We're going to send back a bit of text that just says there's missing information, and our Retell agent is going to listen to that. It's then going to obviously do what it needs to do. And these agents are sort of communicating and talking back and forth with each other. Once we've done that, we're going to pass and analyze information. So just taking the information that comes through, making it sure that it's really nicely formatted for our APIs to use. And then we've just got our prompt to make sure that once we've got that flight information, use the hotel and flight tools to get back that information. Once we've got all that information, we're going to start to build out our plan. So we've got our travel plan format for the HTML email. So this is going to be actually coded in HTML code. That code is going to get sent to our Gmail module, and then that email is going to look nice and formatted. And we can see here exactly how we've mapped out that particular format. So destination and dates, show them the destination and date range, budget, flight options, hotel options, activities we've added there as well. Make the most suggested option with a higher font weight than the others. We've got a specific output formatting rule. So use clear HTML formatting with different sections. So flights, hotels, this is what it's going to be using to structure its HTML output. We want it to be really nice. Obviously separating these two individual things, which you saw at the start as well. And then we've just got some conditioning here. Do not confirm availabilities or bookings. Obviously our system is not going to be booking any flights or booking any trips. It's just a planner. So obviously we want to make sure that our conditioning here understands exactly what it's capable of. And then lastly, just some error handling in the case that there's an issue. And this is obviously just really helps communicate between the two agents exactly what's happening in the process. So if a tool obviously is failed, there's no hotels, there's no flights found, it can send that back and inform the user of that. And they can obviously just talk back and forth with it as a very smooth conversation. There's no static errors. It doesn't just stop working. It's going to be talking back and forth to make it super conversational, like a real human-like conversation. And then at the end here, ending condition. Once all input is validated and relevant data fetched, return the travel plan as a single HTML formatted response, and then just some HTML formatting at the bottom here as well. You're gonna get access to this entire prompt, so you can have a look through and read through all the little parts of this prompt. But this just helps make our HTML output look quite nice, as we saw on my email. So there we have it. The last step is obviously configuring our Gmail module. Super simple to do this. Essentially, you just set up the module that allows us to send a message, which is just sending an email for Gmail. We're going to be adding in the email that we want to be sending to. So this is going to be using this right here, which is just a variable that's coming coming directly from Retell for the email. The contact email comes from Retell, which I'll jump into in a minute. And then we've just got the subject line. And so this is once again using some variables from the Retell agent to give it a really structured subject line that we're going to be using. You could use AI for it as well if you wanted to. Plenty of different options. And then we've obviously got our HTML format directly coming from the AI agent just before it. So there you have it. That's all we need to do to connect our Retell agent to our N8N agent to talk back and forth with each other, work really fluidly, really well to create that really detailed travel plan. So let's fire it up and see how it goes. Hey, is this Sophie?
Hey. Yep, this is Sophie. Thanks for calling in. I'm here to help you with your travel plans today. What kind of trip are you thinking about?
Awesome. Yeah, I'm definitely looking to travel to New York.
New York's such a fun choice. Where will you be flying out from?
Just from Los Angeles.
All right, so heading from Los Angeles to New York. When are you hoping to go and how long do you want to stay?
Probably next week for about 2 weeks.
Got it, so leaving from Los Angeles to New York next week for around 2 weeks. Do you have specific dates in mind, like the exact day you want to leave and come back? Or do you want me to just note it as flexible?
Yeah, just flexible sometime next week.
All right, I'll put you down as flexible dates sometime next week for about 2 weeks. What kind of budget are you thinking for the whole trip? And could you let me know which currency you'd like to use?
Yeah, about 5,000 US.
Perfect. So your budget is about 5,000 US dollars. Is there anything specific you want help with, like flights, hotels, or maybe certain activities or tours in New York?
Yeah, definitely all of it. I'd love to get a plan for everything. One of the big things we're looking to do is obviously have a look at the Empire State Building.
Awesome. So you'd like help with flights, hotels, and activities, including a visit to the Empire State Building. That sounds like a great plan. Just one last thing. What's the best email address for us to send your personalized itinerary once it's ready?
So there we have it. That conversation has just led to this email being sent directly to myself with the entire plan of what I just talked about on that call. So we can see here the destination has been outlined as New York. So perfect, exactly what I said. Estimated travel dates for, I said next week, anytime. Just selected Monday next week, but that's perfect. That is exactly when that is. 2 weeks from then. So awesome, that did exactly that. Captured my budget and then started to essentially tailor my budget with the flight options, hotel options, travel plans, etc. has all been sort of accompanied for that. So we can see here with our budget, these are some of the flight options that we have. So British Airways, all these other airlines here as well have been mapped out specifically for this flight and just a bunch of details that we could use. Under this, we've got some hotel options. So these are some hotel options in New York. Perfect. Looks like it's sort of accounting for our budget as well. Looking at some of the prices of those rooms and calculating whether or not that fits within our budgets. That's awesome. Providing some extra details part of this as well. Even some location information. Just awesome that it's able to essentially just come up with this information and provide us with this. Obviously, this is just based on sort of a mock prompt. This is something that you can obviously add to and change things if you want it to look different. And maybe you've got some other information you want to have included. There's obviously an unlimited amount of adjustments that you could make to this particular format of the document. And then activities and suggestions. We have the Empire State Building. As I mentioned, is something that I wanted to specifically see. So must-see landmark with panoramic views, consider pre-booking tickets. So probably a good shout. Obviously, probably a good shout right there that it just came up with. And obviously some other stuff that it thought might be relevant when visiting there as well. So you can see, super useful. If you want to get even more tailored, obviously the longer and more personalized of a conversation that you have with the agent, the better this email is going to be. If you are a business owner and you're looking at these AI voice agents and automated AI systems, and you want to get one of these systems built out for your business, or you're not exactly sure how this could be implemented in your business, feel free to reach out with us using the link in the description. And if you want to get access to all the templates and prompts I built out in this video, you can go ahead and join my free school community linked in the description.